I built multiple online businesses and scaled a bunch of offers to over $3 million and above by following these simple 10 principles that help me stay focused, put out the products that the market craved, and leverage each business to build up the next one. And what I'm going to do in this video is break down these 10 principles step by step, showing you how you need to think and what you need to do in order to build your own $1 million online business. Number one, don't chase sexy. I think a lot of us have the next shiny thing syndrome, or looking around and seeing what people are doing on Instagram and how sort of fashionable and trendy their lives are. And so when it comes to our own business, we feel that possibly what we are doing is not as glamorous or profitable, and it doesn't have that beautiful facade. And that's the pitfall that you can sort of get into if you're not conscious of it. When I started out, I launched my own language school. And to start with, I was trading my time for money, literally selling my hours, teaching people. That is the least probably sexy way for an entrepreneur to get started. Now, at that point, I didn't think I was going to be an entrepreneur anyway, but that was the premise of the business. However, when I realized that that worked and that I could sort of slowly scale the whole thing and turn it into an actual business, I kept at it. I knew that from the outside, it didn't look glamorous, it didn't look sexy, it didn't look like anything worth praising, but I knew deep down that that thing, if I stay with it long enough, that I'm gonna start generating a substantial amount of revenue. I'm gonna grow this business. It's gonna build up a nice sort of life for me. So I didn't get distracted. I focused on that one thing, and I focused on it for 10 years. And I couldn't have imagined that you could have made so much money out of teaching languages. Like in my mind, it was never the thing that would make me this much money or give me the freedom or give me the lifestyle that I've always wanted. But the fact that I was loyal to it, the fact that I saw and that's the rule for everybody, if you can make 10 sales, that means you can make 100 and you can make 1,000 and you can make 1,000,000 sales, right? That is that simple. You have your proof of concept. So once I sold the first 10 courses, then the first 10 memberships, I knew this is going to work, and it did. But I did not chase the trendy and the fashionable and the glamorous. I was in the trenches, first teaching myself, teaching English, building up the business, and then slowly leveraging my time, hiring other teachers, building up memberships, creating free resources, and creating this whole thing that became a business that I could later then replicate. Now, before we go into number two, don't forget to click like and subscribe and tell me, where are you at in your entrepreneurial journey? Do you already have a business, or are you just starting out? Let me know. All right, number two, water always runs to the lower ground. So when I started out without having a clue how to build a business and what a business was, that was pretty simple and pretty straightforward. As soon as the business began to grow, I realized I did not know how to grow it, how to scale it. What were the rules and what was the pathway for it? At this point, a lot of entrepreneurs, especially the ones that are starting out, would be very, very hesitant to get a job. Now, I identified that that's exactly what I needed. And I found this company. I was living in Bali at the time because by that point, my membership, my first business, the language school, was doing well enough so I could relocate to Bali. Or I found this company that was an entrepreneur education company, which was led and founded by this extraordinary genius CEO who was this #1 wealth consultant in Asia. And I wanted to work for him because I saw that if I get to shadow his mentoring sessions, because that was the deal. I just needed to be his right hand and his tech guy when people joined on the mentoring calls on Zoom, and just sort of help him out with the techie side of things, that I would be learning so much, and I would be using that knowledge to build my own business. So from day one, I treated this as my own personal MBA. And each day where I had a call where I had to be this tech/moderator person on it, I was fully in. I had a notebook open, I had my notes, I literally looked at each business that he was consulting. I analyzed each business as well. I listened to what the entrepreneur had said to the mentor. And I was like dissecting and learning and studying for 5 years. Every single call, every event that I was a part of as part of that company, I was there as a student. And there was no part of me thinking that, oh, suddenly, I'm an employee, or that somehow I'm now not an entrepreneur. Again, I ditched this idea of trying to look a certain way or sound a certain way or be somebody that others wanted, me to be. I just wanted to be good at what I did, and I wanted to focus on it. So I decided to study entrepreneurship and take it seriously. As part of that job, I literally got to study every possible company on the planet, from a flight drone company in the UK to an education platform for veterinarians, for example. And that was absolutely vital for my growth. And this is where I realized that water always goes to the lower ground, always. That means if you're at the source of knowledge, right, and you are around somebody who's much more experienced than you are, their knowledge, if you're keen enough, is going to trickle down to you. And then this is exactly what I did. So I took that knowledge and I implemented it in my business, which then started slowly scaling. And by then I probably had like 1,000 subscribers. But I could do both at the same time and grow and learn, because I knew that the water was going to the lower ground. Number 3, realize that nobody cares what you want. This is quite important because I came from the arts background. I started off as a theatre director in London, and obviously as an artist, you very often are focused on what you want artistically. And I think that's also the case with entrepreneurs, especially the ones that are just starting out. Because they think, well, I want to create this product, I want to do this thing. They are not thinking about the market or the customer or the client, right? They're just thinking what they want. And there's this massive ego that this is what I'd like to do. Now, this is not going to work, barely ever works, if you do not think about your client. Now, that is pretty basic as an idea, as a concept, right? But I want to talk about something that I found extremely helpful, and that was the Japanese concept of ikigai, which translates as the reason for being. You see, ikigai is that sweet spot between your passion, your mission, your vocation, and your profession. Or in other words, between what you are good at and what the world needs, and then what you love and what you can get paid for. When I started out, past my whole career as a theatre director, as an entrepreneur, or starting with my language school first, later now having this whole mentoring company, business mentoring company of my own. So I was looking not only at what I love, but also what I can get paid for. And at the very beginning, when you do not have the track record, you actually have to sort of look more at what people are willing to pay for. And only later look at what you're good at. And only lastly look at what you love, which a lot of books will tell you that possibly that's not the case, but very honestly, it is the case. You first need to look at what people really want and what you can provide for them. So for me, it was very clear that as I was pivoting from the whole world of arts, I didn't have many skills. I wasn't in copyright at the time. I couldn't have mentored businesses as I do now. I couldn't have done so many things because I just had no skills for that. Now, what I was good at was languages. I could speak multiple languages, and then I thought, well, I could easily charge for teaching somebody English. That's a simple transaction. And that was the starting point between what I was good at, what the world needed, and what the world was willing to pay for. And very slowly, I could shift these dynamics and bring in more passion and more mission into the whole equation, meaning that whilst a year in, I realized I did not want to teach or be a teacher. I wanted to be an entrepreneur because that's very creative, and I'm a very creative person. Now, how could I become that? Well, I went into setting up a membership and running my language school as a membership, as an online subscription, which then gives me freedom, which then makes me a strategic entrepreneur who can then leverage his time and hire other people and sell a product rather than his time and grow the whole thing. But that meant that I slowly earned my right to do what I loved. And this is very, very important for everybody. How can you earn your right to do what you love in the way that you love? But then for that, you really need to reconcile these 4 pillars of ikigai. And I promise you, once you reconcile those, you really do discover your reason for being. And it is not that hard, but because a lot of people start with what I love and what I want and what I need with this like whole big I ego trip, they don't get very far. Because the world, to start with, does not care what you want, unfortunately. But as soon as you are there in the world to serve the world, and whether it's teaching a language, or as I recently put out one of my most viral products ever, which is the ChatGPT Bible. Once you serve the world and give the world what it needs, the world in return gives you the right to do more of what you want and what you love. Number 4, sell what you know. So a lot of us have this, again, idea of what we want to do in the world, and whether that is to be famous on YouTube or sort of pursue this or that profession. A lot of the time, we do not necessarily have a certain experience to pursue a path. If way back, which was 10 years ago, I wanted to start a business mentoring company, there was no way that I could have done it because basically I hadn't built a single business. Today, I have a 7-figure, successful, profitable business mentoring company with multiple memberships, offers, and even services that we are soon introducing. But the only reason that I do have this company today is because I built up my first couple of businesses, my language schools, right? And I learned the hard way and went on this entrepreneurial journey to build up these businesses and acquire all those skills and be in the trenches, do the work, fail over and over again and see what works, see what doesn't work, until I got to the point where I could say, well, I could help businesses grow. And again, being very realistic, even up to now, I say I can help businesses that make up to 1 million a year, because that is still the bracket that I'm at. And I know that I would be lacking more experience if I needed to mentor businesses that are in tens of millions, because that is something that I'm learning currently. But this is what's very important, that instead of having this idealized version where you think that you can read 3 books and teach a subject, it's best to teach something that is based on your actual knowledge. So the reason why it was very easy for me to start a language school, because I spoke the language. It was very easy to teach it. I had the credibility. And as soon as I was launching my first business offer, which was teaching people how to build their memberships, I had already built 3. I already knew how to build a membership. I knew what worked, I knew what didn't work, and I had that credibility and authority. At this point, I have built offers that scaled to 3 million, and I could possibly teach that to you. But I'm not, attempting to teach something that I do not have the experience of. So the thing is, how can you start talking about teaching and selling in terms of what you know? Now, it doesn't have to be that you have to build up this mega ultra successful company for you to become, say, a business mentor. What it does mean, it means that you need to start building a business. And once you are ahead, just a couple of steps, a couple of stages, you can teach those stages, right? Because you do not want to go ahead and teach somebody a theoretical piece of knowledge that you've got from a sort of business textbook. That translates, that never works. So anything that I'm saying here on this video is my own truth. I lived through that. I've experienced that. I'm sharing with you what I've learned. I don't know whether that's the best path, but that's what I've gone through and that's what worked for me. So I'm sharing that with you, and I'm walking the talk, and I'm also selling and teaching what I know and stand by and have literally been through. So how can you do the same? Number 5 on this journey of building $1 million online business, and that is leverage your capital and value. This is definitely my favorite, and that is because I want to invite you to think how you can leverage asset A to build asset B, and then leverage asset B to build asset C. What do I mean by that? So for example, when I started out and when I built up my first language school, and that was for Lithuanians living in the UK and then around the world, which is basically becoming like this school for Lithuanians wanting to learn English and then Spanish. Once I've got that sorted and done, I used the asset, meaning the capital, the profit that I had from that company, to build the similar type of school in Romania. And I did the same thing over again. And I was literally funneling some of the capital, some of the money, some of the value, some of the expertise and knowledge and the team's time to build the Romanian version, which is now growing. Now, what I then did, I took both of these assets collectively, took part of the revenue that I was making and part of the profits, and I funneled that into building my own business mentoring company. I had a team, I hired some media buyers, I started developing online offers, I started mentoring, I started shooting these type of videos. So I started creating offers and programs and mentorships and memberships around building your own business because A, I had the experience and I had the funds. So then I started leveraging assets A and B to build asset C. But not only that I was pulling the money from the first 2 assets that I built, I was also pulling that knowledge, meaning that I could first use and leverage what I've learned so that I would build the third company faster, which it did happen. We managed to go to 25,000 buyers in the first year, which is wild. But what I've also managed to do is take the learnings that I've had through building these two companies and make it into a curriculum in my company C, in my business mentoring company, in my asset C, meaning that what I've learned on that journey, I'm now selling as knowledge in this business mentoring company as part of my new business mentoring company, because I have this credibility that I'm pulling from these two assets. You see how that correlates. Not only that you use sort of the capital from that given asset, but you also use its fundamental value and you think, how can I extract that value and leverage further? What can I do with it? And it may well be that you pull out the capital and you invest in property and then you build a property business. That's valid and that's what I'm doing as well. But also it's quite interesting to see how each business can prompt the next one and you can grow all these businesses simultaneously. And that's what I love about the game of entrepreneurship. But you need to get started with one and slowly build up and leverage the following assets. Number 6, follow the market. This is again an important one because if we are tied to our own ego and the perception of what we want to do as entrepreneurs, we miss out on what the market is craving and needing right now. And that's as simple as that. You look at the market, you look at this money flow that is happening every day. If you go and sort of see Starbucks, right? Like you see all these people walking in and giving money to Starbucks just to get their latte, oat milk latte or something, right? You need a bit of that money diverted your way. Now, how do you do that? Again, it's really by noticing where these flows in the market happen. For example, what does that mean practically? When I started out with my language school, back then, which was 10 years ago, a lot of Lithuanians had moved to the UK to work there. So that meant they all needed to learn English. I spoke both languages. I could teach English very easily. I started that business. 7 years later, when I needed to leverage that business model, I looked at what else was happening in the market. By then, Romania had joined the EU and they had the free movement of labor. That meant that they could go to the UK to work. And millions of Romanians, because it's a massive country, moved over to the UK to do that. Again, I followed the market, I created the business, I just basically copy-pasted what I did in the Lithuanian version and we created the Romanian version, right? Because we followed the market, we followed the economic movement at the time. In my world, this is what I saw, this is what I noticed, this is what I spotted, and that was my sort of share of that opportunity. Similarly, when we were growing the business mentoring company, one of the things that we leveraged very, very recently was this whole wave of AI and ChatGPT. I saw that everybody is learning about it, everybody wants to know more about it. So I put my team together and we released the ultimate ChatGPT Bible. We created these 10,000 prompts for ChatGPT, for entrepreneurs and marketers, and 25,000 people went in and bought it. But I knew that the ChatGPT Bible was only that threshold for people to come into my world, so then I could introduce them to my other memberships, other offers that I was creating, and allow them entry to my gorgeous world of business mentoring and what we're doing in our company. And that was the sort of attraction point. But again, we're like really seeing the market move. So instead of me sitting there and thinking, well, I really want to teach memberships, which I do and I still do and I teach it, and all these people now are joining my programs about it, I just looked at the market and thought, well, hey, everybody's now learning about AI, why don't I teach them that? I only needed to be a few steps ahead, right? Like I needed to hire a few AI experts. We went in, we analyzed ChatGPT at the time. When it had come out, we designed the prompts and we put it out, right? And we are with the market. And as soon as you go with the flow of the market tends to reward you, and it rewards you quite significantly, because you notice the gap between the craving and the need of the market, of the people, and what the market is offering. And a lot of the time, if there is a gap, that means that there is opportunity. And if you tap into that gap, into that opportunity between the need and the output in the market, the offering in the market, you are going to be successful and you're going to make, if not like tons of money, a substantial amount of money. And that is also good enough. Number 7. Don't be smart. Okay, I'm just gonna get the elephant out of the room and point to the elephant or whatever. As you see, a completely new setup, completely new clothes. I'm sick now. And the reason for this new take for number 7 is because I realized I hadn't recorded number 7. And my editor got back to me and said, hey, number 7 is missing in this video. So instead of trying to recreate the same setup, I just sat down and re-recorded anew. All right, so let's jump in. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, as soon as they start hiring, even if it's a contractor, a VA, a service, they always feel, or at least in my experience from what I've seen, people feel that since it's my business, I have to have authority. I have to have overbearing presence almost over what's going on. You know, they're trying to be the smartest. They're trying to be sort of the brightest in the room. What happens in these cases, and I've seen this happen time and time again in companies that I worked for, and in some experiences of my own as I started out, if you are trying to be the smartest, if you are trying to be the one who knows everything, this is where things tend to go wrong. Because the thing is, you have to hire people that are smarter than you. And if you don't hire people that are smarter than you, then at least hire people who are good at the things that you are weak at. So any kind of weaknesses that you may have, hire for those. Outsource things that you're not that good at. So for example, you hate admin, outsource admin. Don't pretend to know how these numbers work there or add up, outsource. As soon as you have a budget, if you can't do video editing, outsource somebody to do that. And don't sort of pretend that suddenly you are the person who knows everything. Well, worked in a few companies where they had hired me, had paid me very good salary when I was starting out, but then the owner of the company, the CEO, would be the person who would not give me autonomy of any kind because they would be the smartest, the brightest, the genius. And so my natural reaction was to step back, and I was like, if you know it so well, do it yourself. You know, I'm not going to invest my heart and my soul and my work and my hours. I'm going to go and do my own thing, which is what I did. With other people, they may try, and at the end they will give up and find another job, because nobody really wants to be working for somebody that is, you know, seeing themselves as better than, and or at least, you know, tries to project that idea. So you are only able to build a strong team when you can leave your ego at the door, get a bunch of good people, or even if those people are not the best, train them. But instead of just training them and managing them, empower them. And this is how you allow somebody else to shine. You allow somebody else to be the smarter one. And this is what I really love doing in the meetings. Even if we had hired somebody quite junior, somebody who seemingly has no experience, and we are on a team call trying to come up and make a major decision, I always turn around to that person and I say, what do you think? What is your opinion? Right? Because you want to empower that person because they will feel invested. And if you're wanting to be the smartest, the greatest, the bestest of them all, well, my friend, that's not the best pathway to build a good team. It may be a good pathway to build a cult, not a team. Number 8, be Amazon. And this is where I come to think of myself, even when I was at the very beginning of this journey, not as a small business or a starting entrepreneur or entrepreneur halfway through on his journey. I always thought of myself as somebody who was, for example, like Amazon. I would look at Amazon, I would think, how are they generating this much money? Like, what are they doing? And I fully know I'm not going to probably create Amazon, and I'm realistic about it. But what I can do, I can look at their model and I can borrow the best bits of it and implement it in my own business. So, for example, I was, from day one, when I created my first membership, I saw that, you know, Amazon Prime was doing very well, and that it was one of the leading revenue sources for Amazon. But then I also noticed how they had all these additional products and services all around it, right? So that it wasn't only Amazon Prime or percentage of sales that they had generated, but also that it was all these multiple products around it, right? So then I started to think, how can my business be like that? So then, for example, part of my language schools, I started creating additional offers. People could opt in for courses with teachers live on Zoom. And these packages now cost not $20, but $300, $400, $500. And people were willing to pay for it because suddenly I was creating an ecosystem. As small an ecosystem as it was, even if it is 1,000 people, and that is enough, you have these people follow you, you have these people join your office. And if you structure the office in a way that it sort of makes sense for the person to chronologically go through these offers and grow through each of these offers and get the right results, you are going to have success because you set up the system the right way. But this is only possible if you think bigger than yourself. Because if I had started out where I thought, I'm not going to do much here, I'm just an English teacher, this is not going to work, this wouldn't have gone far. But instead I said, well, what if I think like Amazon? And this is where I went and drew up this formula where I wrote low ticket offers plus membership plus high ticket offers, right? And then I made sure that we had offers in each of these categories. And that way we scaled the whole business. But I challenged myself to think that way. And even up to this day, I look at, well, this very same model, Amazon, but also at other businesses. And I think what they're doing and how they're doing it and what bits and bobs I can sort of borrow from them and implement it in my own path, in my own journey, in my own business. And I no longer think just as Darius who is trying to build a business. No, I think of myself as Amazon. And that really broadens your perspective and increases your results. And that really broadens your perspective and multiplies your results. Number 9, do it incrementally. Well, when you are out in this online space of building businesses and especially building an online business, you see all these gurus telling you stories about their clients, how they built this business in 2 days and they suddenly hit like 7 million in 30 days. And then that makes you feel like you're not doing it well enough and you're falling behind. And a lot of the time, those stories are not even true. And if they are true, that's usually that the given person, entrepreneur, would have had like 10 years of experience behind them, to be this overnight success, because there's no such thing as overnight success. And very, very, very few people manage to crack the code within just starting out, like very few. And instead of focusing on those very few, the tiny percentage of the population who just happen to get it and happen to crack the code, understand that most likely you are going to be on a very gradual journey in building your business. And that is not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen over a month even, and possibly not even a year. And that's okay. And this is where it's important not to go and look at these videos where people are sitting in private jets, because why are they even doing that? I don't know, honestly. But look at yourself and your life and think, okay, well, first, my goal is not to be on a private jet, possibly. I mean, if it is, well, good luck with that, but it usually takes time. But what you want to think of is maybe that you want to hit the first 1K a month threshold, and then you grow your business to 5K a month. And then slowly you grow that to 10K. And then you put up these milestones quite realistically and you reverse engineer how to get there. Instead of getting distracted by the noise of perceived success out there, which is an illusion, a mirage that is just not true most of the time. And instead just focusing on who you are and your path. It literally took me a decade to build my language schools. But then it took me 1 year to grow my next company to 25,000 buyers. But the only reason why it took me only a year to grow my next company is because I had those 10 years behind me. So it wasn't that suddenly I was a genius to scale this company. And now I could sit here and tell you, well, I made $3 million or $5 million or whatever that was in a year because I was a genius. No, I wasn't. I worked super hard for 10 years. I accumulated this much of experience. I've gone through like 5 years of mentoring. I've done X, Y, Z. Here I am at this point where I managed to scale this next company. And probably the third company is gonna take me 6 months to scale. Hopefully, I hope so, I don't know. It's first incremental. And at a certain point, you will hit the point where it will be exponential, where you suddenly will shoot up in your growth like you never thought that you could before. But for exponential to happen, you need to go through the incremental path. And it is definitely possible. Number 10. Be obsessed. And this is the reality. If you do not love what you do, if you're not obsessed with what you do, all these other people, and that's common knowledge, this is not a new idea that I'm sharing, right? All of these competitors who are obsessed with what they do are gonna outcompete you. And that's just the reality. I'm sorry to break it to you, but it's true. I'll share my own example. I knew that I wanted to build freedom for myself. That was my drive, and that's what motivated me. And freedom to me meant that I needed wealth to obviously fund the freedom, but that was my goal. And I was obsessed with A, the idea of freedom, and B, vehicle through which I was gonna get that freedom. And that was building an online business. And I was obsessed with it. Like I wanted, as I said at the beginning of the video, I wanted to learn anything and everything that I could about building a company, building a business, and I became absolutely obsessed and passionate about it. I was fortunate enough to find really amazing teachers, work in companies, as I said, as an employee, that really inspired this drive and this fascination with entrepreneurship for me. But I was there, I showed up each and every day for the past 10, 12, 13 years, I don't know how many now I've been doing this for. And up to this day, I spent most of my time studying and learning and thinking and strategizing how I could advance my business. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be this obsessive person. You can just be passionate about something, right? But you need to love what you do. You need to be excited about this prospect of building this business that you're building, of cracking the code, of understanding how a business works, because that way you're gonna be way ahead of your competition, because what's happening to you is that you're getting energized just naturally by yourself because you are in your element. And when you are in your element, when you are in your flow, things just happen, doors open up because you are at it. And I remember, for example, when I shared the story about the second company, my business mentoring company, when I hired my media buyers, which was a year ago, I said to them, I don't care how long this takes. We can test hundreds of offers, but we are going to find one offer that scales and goes viral. And I said, this is just non-negotiable. Like, I'm ready to put in the hours, to put in the work and go all in. And I did it. But that was just that resolution that I had, that I'm all in. I am all in today, and I'll be all in for quite a while, I think, until I get bored and I want to do something else. But that's the reality. So be obsessed with your business because it helps. And it helps you when you want to outcompete all of your competitors. And it helps you on the difficult days and the hard days because you're inspired and driven to move and get ahead. Right, so these were my 10 principles of building your own $1 million business online. Do share in the comments below, what was your biggest takeaway from this video? What is that one lesson that you're taking away from this video and that you're going to implement? Please let me know. And also, obviously, like and subscribe and come into this universe, and let's be learning and building businesses together.